call this regular meeting of the Twp Board of Trustees, May 8, 2018 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to welcome everybody tonight to our new meeting room, or at least our temporary one. We have the agenda before us. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions? Anybody? If not, the agenda will stand as printed. So we have no sheriff's report tonight. I guess just for the sake of maybe stopping here, is there anybody in the audience that might have a question or concern for the representative from the sheriff's office? Seeing none, we'll move on. And we'll start with new business. And I would like to do number one of new business on the agenda, which is the Ohio Fire Chief credentialing process. Let me just explain a little bit about this before I read this. There's a movement going on in the entire American Fire Service to create a credentialing process for administration and officers and firefighters so that it requires them to do certain things to get to certain levels, which all encompasses the accredited types of certifications, classes, and training, in addition to minimum standards. So Ohio has established one through the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association called the Ohio Fire Chiefs Credentialing System. So what it does is it requires a lot of additional training, a lot of additional certifications. So their goal is to start there and then continually move down to other ranks. So what it does is it offers not only recognition, but a credentialing process by requiring certain standards. So I just want to read this letter as a part of our own fire chief's credentialing process. It's dated April 20th, 2018. And it's addressed to Chief Charles Schallenberger, OFC, which stands for Ohio Fire Chief. So now he's going to have 3 letters as an acronym after his name. Dear Chief Schallenberger, congratulations. You have earned the Ohio Fire Chief's credential as witnessed by a team of your peers. You have demonstrated through education, experience, community leadership, and fire management skills that you possess the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities required for a fire service leader in the state of Ohio. Enclosed, you will find your certificate and citation bar. The citation bar is to be displayed on your Class A uniform. We encourage you to share this accomplishment with your local media and your elected officials. Feel free to add the acronym OFC after your name on your business cards and correspondence. On behalf of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association and the Credentialing Committee, we commend you on your accomplishments and dedication to the fire service. Yours in public safety, William Haupt, and Chief Haupt is the president of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. And with that, he has also received the certificate, which I'm assuming you already have.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's absolute great accomplishment. Chuck, I know you've worked a long time on that. And, you know, there are certain things that you have to do. It's not somebody just doesn't reach out. So, you know, and that does come with a fee as well. It comes with the recertification as well. So you don't just get it for life, because the whole idea is to keep you current. So there are certain things that he will have to continue to do. What is that, a 3-year?
Yeah, every 3 years
Yeah.
you get audited, just like your state fire card. You have to have a certain amount of classes you attend, and state and local,
So, you know, on behalf of the board, Chuck, we're all proud of you.
Absolutely.
You know, this is certainly over and above what we would believe, but it doesn't surprise any of us. You know, you've always been one of those people that, you know, jump at every chance that you can to be able to get additional training and professional development. And, you know, you should be proud, your family should be proud, but we're also all proud.
Thanks very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And number 2, Mr. Iacino, you're going to do those?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 2 is a resolution by the Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to approve and authorize payment to the State of Ohio UST Fund for the 2018 underground storage tank fees in the amount of $2,200 from the funds listed.
I will move on new business number 2.
I'll second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded. Discussion.
This is an annual thing that we have to do because we have underground tanks at the fire station and the road department.
Yeah, and this is what that buster process, right?
Yes.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3 is the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, has property and casualty and vehicle insurance with the Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority, OTARMA. Whereas OTARMA is offering a CDL and an MVR credit to the Plain Township in the amounts of $475 and $144.50. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to accept OTARMA insurance renewable rates for Plain Township's property, casualty, and vehicle insurance package with a $4 million liability limit for the period of May 5th, 2018 through May 4th, 2019 in the amount of $105,017.56.
I will so move on to new business number 3.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
We have added a splash pad and a couple other things, the monuments. So it may be a good time to increase it up to the $5 million liability. According to some other townships in the area, we're on the low side as far as our coverage. We've budgeted for the $5 million, so we have the funds available for that premium. If we go above $5 million, we just have to do a transfer, but $5 million.
So right now, based on our potential liability, everybody would agree that $5 million should be an okay figure.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good with that then. So based on that, we will go with the $5 million liability. So any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. Sure. Oh, yeah, I do for the record. Mr. Wolf, would you please indicate that Trustee Hawes is on authorized absence? He has, for the first time ever, actually taken a family vacation where all of their family is together.
Wow.
So it's the first time they've ever done that. So it's kind of a special occasion. So he is excused tonight. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, Scott, you're going to be watching this. We didn't forget.
Okay, so, yeah, he'll, as soon as he
Oh,
posts it.
he'll be watching, yeah. He's got a first, we didn't forget you.
Yeah.
It just dawned on us, sorry.
Okay, so that takes us to the fiscal officer's report, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of pending warrants in an amount of $717,490.74.
We'll move on. Fiscal officer number 1.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
I will so move authority to pay.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
Okay, I will so move.
I'll second. It's Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the financial report for the month of April. I'm available after the meeting if anyone has any questions. Fiscal Officer number 5 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
I'll move on fiscal officer number 5.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize the Plain Township Fiscal Officer to request an additional amended certificate of estimated resources from the Stark County Auditor for $496,489.67, and to appropriate these funds as follows.
I will so move on fiscal officer number 6.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for resolution to authorize the release of insurance proceeds being retained for a loss caused by fire on October 8, 2017 at 4704 Harmon Avenue Northeast in the amount of $32,640. The check is to be made payable to Richard and Joanne Jeffries and mailed to 4704 Harmon Avenue, Canton, Ohio 44705, as authorized by Fire Inspector Scott Kelly, Division of Inspections and Investigations.
I'll move on fiscal officer number 7.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion just for the sake of this. That's just a standard process that we do that allows us to have a certain amount of insurance that goes into escrow just to confirm that the property will be taken care of. That is not allowed to go into an interest-bearing account. So it's not as if we would take somebody else's money and put it in there for us to make money. So, but it's a requirement as a part of insurance premiums. And that actually took a while, didn't it?
Yeah, that house did take a while to get that.
Yeah, that took a while, even with reputable contractors, that did take a while. So, any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the fiscal officer.
Thank you. That takes us to nothing for administrator, nothing for fire. Takes us to road. Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to direct the Plain Township Highway Superintendent to invoice the City of North Canton for the portion of Orion Street that will be paved through Plain Township's 2018 paving project. Estimated cost for paving is $22,000 per purchase order.
I'll move on road 1.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. This is almost a no-brainer. You know,
Yeah.
we're collaborating to be able to take a street that there is this break
It was
in.
annexed years ago,
Yeah.
it's down the center line between Cleveland Avenue and Berkey, and so we must just go.
Otherwise, there's going to be a distinctive starting and stopping place.
So are we supposed to just pave the north
Yeah.
half of the road, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So-
Exactly.
This wasn't part of that micro-surfacing or anything?
No, we didn't do that.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to rescind Resolution 18-214 passed on April 24th, 2018. Christopher Scarpino chose not to accept the position within the Plain Township Road Department.
I will so move on road 2.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
After accepting the position and leaving the board, he was working at Canton Township and told if they made him an offer, he couldn't refuse to stay there. I think they moved him up to the foreman's position, so whatever, wanted to be happy, so we'll have to look for a new candidate.
Yeah. And we have that process started, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and that takes us to zoning. Mr. Ferrara?
Thank you, sir. Item number 1 on the agenda is nuisance abatement for item A.
Street is unknown.
That's on Sandwood.
Is that a fire building? Is that the one on the fire?
Or did it?
There was one up there. Yeah.
I will move on zoning 1A.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Anything specifically? No. No. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thanks, Tom. That'll take us to parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. My one and only item tonight is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment of fairway golf carts, parts, and more in an amount not to exceed $3,500 from Fund 01F05A for the purchase of a new golf cart.
I'll move on parks 1.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Very briefly, we never did replace our Easy Go golf cart, 4-person golf cart. We have a lot more events, farmers markets, salute to veterans, tournaments where there's some elderly folks and some folks that have some disabilities that we'd like to be able to get to and from comfortably and safely.
And we do use it for that, but also that's kind of a utility vehicle to go across all our turf that we have. And,
It's
to do certain things that it requires something that is not necessarily a heavy motorized vehicle.
correct. It's also street legal, comes with a license plate registration, the whole bit. I'm pretty pleased with the way it looks. It's clean in and out. I asked Mr. Haynes to come with me and look at it, who also has a golf cart, so we're happy with what we think we have. It'll be a durable vehicle for a while.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes part.
Ball director, nothing. Communications, nothing. That takes us to the portion of our meeting of public speaks. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board, please, you can just raise your hand here. It doesn't have to be formal. But I would like you to give your name and address for the purpose of the fiscal officer's documentation. Yes, sir.
My name is Charles Linder. My residence is at 3261 55th Street Northeast. The zip code is 44721. I came to the meeting today because I felt it my personal duty to bring to the board's attention what I feel is a public safety problem due to a drainage project that was commenced on my property just a little bit over 2 years ago. The drainage ditch that goes through the property that is on the easternmost end of my property on the north side of the road has morphed into a canal that, if things continue the way I have seen over the years, and especially since the first of the year, cars coming north on East Center Drive to turn west on 55th Street, I would say several percent of them a week don't make that turn, and they will go through the grass verge that we take care of to keep appearances up. Most times, at least since this drainage project was performed, everybody seems to be recovering and making it back out onto the road. My biggest concern is the unfortunate fool that happens to not make that turn and continues west through the yard and drives his car into what is now a ditch that measures 21 feet across, somewhere between 6 and 7 feet deep, and from the roadway to a tree that brackets it, it's 50 feet long. This is somewhere in the area of about, I'd say, between 75 and maybe 100 feet from that very sharp left-hand turn. From that direction, it's a left-hand turn. And my personal liability is just astronomical. If somebody were to come around that corner not make it back onto the street, drive into that ditch and get killed or seriously injured. I was informed that I needed to come to the meeting, make certain that you learned how I felt about it, so that if there's anything that can be done through the township and hopefully with the help of the county, that we can do something to alleviate what I think is probably a terribly unsafe circumstance over there. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. I know I haven't, it's been a long time since I've been out there. I'm very familiar with all that property, but because as you're describing it, I'm just following along which way I'm turning and going. But that, first of all, that ditch was created by the county?
Stark County engineers.
And then where does it send its watershed to?
That water goes north and it heads west down to the large creek.
It empties into
Across 55th there,
Yeah.
where they redid the bridge.
Right.
it empties into the new Showing Creek.
Okay.
At the time of construction, when the county did the work, we extended the pipe crossing 55th from south to north and put a catch basin 10 feet off road with because it was too close to the road, we thought. I called the county bridge and guardrail engineer to come out and look at it, because I thought maybe a piece of guardrail would be warranted there. At that time, he said it wasn't. I'll definitely contact him again to come out and look at it. The depth of the pipe crossing the road, so the depth of the ditch can't really change. I mean, maybe something could be happened width-wise, but depth-wise at that part, it's not going to be able to be changed. Signage, we have numerous arrows in both directions prior to that curve heading north. I'm also going to call the county traffic engineer to see if there are adequate, or if he thinks I need to add more. Speeding of residents, we can't control with signs, we know that. So we will look at doing whatever the county lets us do. Because guardrail you have to be careful with, because they say it causes head-on collisions by bouncing off the guardrail, don't hit cars.
That's what I was saying, having we have to go to a mandatory meeting every year at the Stark County, with the engineer. I remember guardrail, when they come up, it's a touchy subject, they have certain guidelines that they can use to put them up.
Right.
So we're in a catch-22 here, and I'm glad you're here, because you're here on record, in front of the camera. The county will recognize that you talked about a danger zone, somebody getting hurt, so that'll be now to their attention. The question is, does it meet the guidelines of a guardrail? And I don't know that, because I know, according to, when that gentleman speaks on guardrails,
It's not a basic, yes.
there's so many regulations, like Joe said, what if a car bounces off? Are they liable then? So in order to put a guardrail, it has to be pretty much of a situation where it's more of a safety for those who go off it versus someone bouncing off and hurting others. But now that you brought it to our attention, and Joe let them know that you were at the meeting tonight, then
Yeah, I
we'll come back and look at it. 'Cause looking at
this
that,
morning, Gary was the engineer on the ditch project. I will write a letter to the county, to Keith Bennett, wanting to address those issues, and those two engineers will be with me.
it was a deep ditch, from what I just saw.
Yeah, it's a deep
That's
ditch.
pretty
I took a
big.
picture.
And now that you brought the take off forbid if someone to get hurt there,
Yeah.
and it's been up to, so we'll do everything on our part, and hope that it meets their guidelines. Maybe they'll relook at it, but other than that, I don't know how else we can do it.
I'd like to add that historically, before the drainage project occurred, there was a ditch going through that field that my father maintained. We used it as a watering hole for horses. It used to be a horse pasture there. And that particular place right beside the road was the wide spot. And we were able to cross it with tractors instead of going out on the street with tractors that would have brush hogs and such on it. And even when that, I'm gonna call it a swale, it was a ditch then, was somewhere in the area of 18 inches, maybe 2 feet deep, and probably 8, 10 feet across. I saw many cars get destroyed because they came through first they had to breach the fence line and then drive into that ditch. And they would just demolish their cars. I saw a Corvette broken up into probably 20 pieces that tried to drive through what was a low spot that happened to catch water, and water would drain down through the horse pasture. Now it is just frightening. And when I'm out there running the mower, getting close to it, I look at it. It's just getting bigger. The water that comes out of this drain box, when we have one of these gully washer rainstorms, you go out there before the flooding takes place that inundates the road. If you go there before that happens, there is a fire hose of water, 18 inches in diameter, that shoots out of that thing, and it hits the bank. The bank on the east side, which would be on the far side from my house, is just falling off, and it's getting further and further away. The thing is opening up. It's not going to stop.
Well, there are things we can do to stop the erosion. The reason the ditch was redug almost 3 years ago was because that whole intersection would flood. There's a lot of water that comes from
Columbus Road.
Columbus Road, from Bentler, through the fields, and it just couldn't handle it. And it would flood, and then we'd get cars hydroplaning there, and the whole area would be flooded.
There was a circumstance not quite 10 years ago where the water that came off of the eastmost fields, the upper 40 I call them, used to come down, and when my father was actively farming all the fields, and the field that is now Central Allied's pit, the water would drain through a tile underneath the road onto that south field that was alongside the airport runways. Well, after the digging commenced for the mining operation, and they got things to the point where their roadways were within 5 feet of the level of their ponds, when we get those really big gully washers come through, that water would go through that drain pipe and start filling up their lake, and before they knew it, their roadways would be underwater, and they just didn't know what to do. They had to stop operations until things got to the point where they weren't trying to navigate floodwaters. Well, those guys took a digging machine and went over there and found that tile and caved it in with a backhoe, so that all that water that was once going out onto a field that my father was actively farming. I mean, it was watering a cornfield or a soybean field or whatever. It was almost 60 acres of property that was benefiting from all that water. Well, after he died and my mom made that sale to the mining operation, all that water started going in their pit, and they just looked at it as, what are we going to do about this now? They figured it out, and they took care of it. Things got worse for the roadway from that point forward. I mean, it got to the point where we would get floodwaters coming from the corner to within about 20 feet of the barns. The water would be this deep going across the road, 75, 80 yards long. Now that this drainage canal has been cut through there, it's not anywhere near as bad as it once was.
It really has to be a big rain now. And most of that water's coming out of that east field, like you said.
Well,
the county's had a project in their books for over 20 years on Bentler to help that, but the owner of the land didn't have anything to do with it.
There's about 300 acres of farm ground that drains off down through that valley and ends up draining into the creek bed through that ditch on the east end of my property.
Yeah, I remember, we used to get that water backed up all the way up to Breezewood.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Joe, can you, for Mr. Linder, make sure you have his number, and then whatever you hear from the county, if they could maybe have a guideline sheet, even if we are gonna follow it or not follow, at least he can see what the guidelines are, and if it does meet the criteria, this way he knows you're communicating with them, they in return come back with you, you can show them either why it will work or why it won't work.
And our road department can do something with the erosion problem on the west side of the ditch.
Yeah, because that could affect us eventually, right? Our
Right.
Did you
roads.
say you look into the erosion problem?
Well, yeah, we'll put big rock in there to stop that from
Okay.
happening, so.
So the county, be their decision, but the government will make an attempt, Joe will make a call. And hopefully you can see what their guideline is, whether they may, maybe they'll relook at it and say, hey, wow, now that's brought to our attention, worrying about safety, maybe they will, I don't know.
When I spoke with the hydraulic engineer from the county this morning, Mr. Connor, he said that in all likelihood, it's probably going to require some kind of study to be able to determine what can be done so far as guardrails or otherwise on the street, even signage. He says that there's science to it, that it's going to require the likelihood that someone from the township is going to have to make an overture to them so that
Which
they'll...
I will do, but I will also make sure the process goes a little quicker than taking a year-long study.
Yeah.
I will make sure of that, so.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Yes, anybody else? Yes.
Tom Schilling, 4221 Plain Center Avenue, Northeast, Canton, 44714. I talked to Rick Flory today about the 44th Street, 2 properties, Emmitston to Canton, and the actual annexation, I believe, is going to occur tomorrow. I was concerned that we hadn't been notified until, well, it's like a done deal. I think it was a done deal when we were notified, and he said that both the city of Canton was notified. Now, this guy's from the county, but the city of Canton was notified and Plain Township was notified about this request for annexation, and no petition came back in response to not wanting it. And so it's a done deal. And I asked him, well, do any of the abutting properties have any say in it? He says, no, because within the revised code, I don't know what the code number was or anything, that it was just something that it was going to happen. And I was concerned, and I expressed my concern that, so then there's nothing we can do about it. He says, no.
Tom, one person that decides to go, yeah.
Yeah, I thought we talked about this at the last meeting, but, okay, well, for purposes of clarity, when it's 100% annexation, the process that they go through is called an expedited type 2. That does not allow the adjoining property owners to object. The only people that can object would be the township, but we can only object based on 7 statutory criteria that I will tell you they review anyway. So our objection is essentially what they're going to look at as to whether or not to pass it anyway. Now, when you don't object, they do a review, and having filed these for folks that wanted them filed, I can tell you, they call you and they say, hey, this isn't in line, this isn't in line, and you get a chance to get it in line anyway. So what the board has done with expedited type 2 annexations has not been to bother to make that formality of an objection typically unless we have a reason to do so. And we didn't see any in this one, and so we did not. So you're right in that it is kind of a, I don't want to say formality because that's not fair, but when you say done deal, yeah, it's a done deal, unless they notify the petitioners, hey, you're off here, you missed something here, you didn't cross a T or dot an I there.
The petitioners being those who want to come into this.
Typically, they would notify, in this particular case, Sam Slyman, the annexation director, and say, get these papers to us, get the revised engineer's map to us, because it's off here or there, and they would do that.
So the reason then, I understand what you're saying here, if I understand what you're saying, the reason that it was sort of an automatic thing was because those two properties, 100% of the ownership of those two properties wanted to be annexed.
You got it.
Okay, so that's what constituted the expedited
Correct.
annexation.
Correct. If it had been 5 properties and 3 of them wanted it, that is the process we talked about last time where you can object. If you're in a half-mile radius, you have a right to be heard. We typically object to those. I can't remember one in the last 13 or 14 years we haven't objected if it's not unanimous. So that's a different procedure altogether. It calls for a full-blown hearing, not just a review, testimonies heard, all those kinds of things.
Okay.
How are you making out with, you wanted to educate some of the neighbors, because Canton's kind of like, how did you make out with that?
Well, that's a process that's going to
Because we'll
take
have
place.
that, because I know that they're starting, Canton's, what they do, they're starting to talk to individuals in that area. That's how it rolls, when you've got one owner person that wants to go, and then it comes contiguous and gets close to adjoining neighbors. That's what Canton likes to do. They now start trying to work their magic and bring them into their community. I already know of a couple of people who have already been called. One's still thinking about it right now. We're not sure. Tom's did a great job talking to that individual. So that's what they do. So the most important thing is, and I think we said last meeting, if your neighbors need a little education on that, to be reassured, then bring them to a meeting. We'll be willing to share whatever we can share with them. Because it does get confusing when someone comes and starts knocking at the door and starts telling them all the things that they can do for them.
So does Canton City actually do that? Do they go like door to door?
Well, when Canton City starts doing an annexation, then that's what they're good at. They'll start the communication to so-called right people that they think they can bring in, am I right?
I don't know how they do it internally.
We don't know, but we know that this has happened to us in the past, where when they start on a roll, communication with others start coming in.
Well,
And I'm not saying that people didn't go for it, but that's what they do.
Yeah, I called a couple of our neighbors when I first found out about this, and they didn't seem to be particularly, well, one was kind of in the same boat as Judy and I, definitely don't want this. The others didn't, 2 others didn't seem to be too concerned. We have plans to contact from those 2 properties down to the end of 44th and then around the corner down Plain Center, at least that immediate area. And our idea was to basically go door to door, find out if they were be approached by Canton City, would you be interested in being annexed? And then kind of get a feel for things and go from there. And then maybe take you up on your offer to have like a little meeting,
That would be the
information.
concern.
Pardon me?
I say that would be the concern. You may have people right now that live around you that, when they look at those 2 properties and you ask them, so how do you feel about that? They may say, does it really affect me, or I don't care. A follow-up question to that should be, so if you were approached to go into the city, then what would you do? Because I think you'll find that those same people will say, one way or the other, whatever their conscience wants to tell them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll probably find if they're established residents, they're probably not going to want to do that. I'm just guessing.
I just don't want to be somehow gobbled up into that. Anywhere in the township is a concern for me.
Sure.
But because those properties brought it so close to home, it's even a more
No,
drastic
it should be a
concern.
concern, sure. I mean, if you like township government, township living, it should be a concern. You
Yeah.
like living in a township. You know what? You choose not to live in the city. That's why you're in the township. A lot of people choose. People love living in the city, people like living in townships. And right now, this is what's happening because of this one owner who wants to go, this is what this is causing. It's like a ricochet.
And that has always been, every board that I have ever been familiar with before I came on the board always took this stance, that if it is an annexation that's going to attempt to annex one property owner of our resident that does not want to go in, we're going to fight for that one resident because we can and because of those issues.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes we're in a fight with one arm tied behind us and both of our legs tied together.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah, but we're still going to try.
Yes, sir. My name is Judy Potok, and I live at 4207 Lane Center Northeast, Canton 44714. And just following up, so you're saying that the city of Canton can come out, it can and does come out into the township and actively go after people to be annexed. That we could expect this kind of behavior in our neighborhood.
I don't know what you can expect or not expect, because I have no idea what Canton wants to do over there.
Yeah, we don't know.
But can they go door to door? Absolutely.
Right.
Would you go door to door and do that kind of thing?
To
To
do it the opposite?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can't go into Canton and do that.
Well, I mean, can people be unannexed? I guess.
No.
No, I mean, there's a
Well,
procedure, but I can tell you
It-
that it is almost impossible.
That's
Yeah,
what
because for the
100%.
most part, they have to have majority of council
No, they have to have unanimous.
unanimous, which would mean, you know,
It doesn't happen.
yeah,
That's the reality.
That's so, yeah, you never get 100% too.
It doesn't happen. There's another procedure where I think you can, it's almost like suing your way out of it. The standard, what you have to show is ridiculous, and it just, as a matter of course, it doesn't happen.
Maybe I want to be careful because, you know, I'm not saying anything bad about the city of Canton because we try to work with the city of Canton. It's what we're supposed to be doing. Cities and townships should be working together. But for the most part, and help me out here, and Eric help me out.
Sure.
For the most part, the city doesn't really do too much to the residential areas. We've been burnt with the commercial. They've taken a lot of commercial business away from us. They've had their little routines and whatever they've done, and, you know, and I've always said this, and I'm gonna say it, but doggone it, the water is an issue that I wish we could end someday, but it won't. But to be able to use that hostage, to be able to say to a big business that we can give you this water at our rate, that hurts us, you know? Because the business itself now has to pay the income tax. Do you think any business really wants to pay that income tax if you have a successful business? But the water, if they use a lot of water, is a tool that they use. And it's difficult for us because we can't fight that. And I wish that law could change.
There's a
because-
House bill pending, but
Yeah.
it's not.
So
like
that's
that.
what happens to, we lose more commercial. We've lost some great areas that they've taken. And I'm not saying anything bad about the city, that's their job. They're like, we want to keep our rent, they want to take what they can because they want that commercial base, they want that money. So most of the time, help me out, they leave our residential areas away.
The
Unless
dirty
they
little
see
secret is that residential annexations aren't cost effective for them.
No,
They take in a bunch of residences, and they've got to service that area, they got to do the roads, they got to do the police, they got to do all that stuff, and they're just not cost effective. So they're looking for businesses.
Well, let me ask you this then, because this is section 27, and section 27 is being chopped up. There's Martindale Park, which I guess is already Kansas City, which is part of section 27. And now these two houses, that property. The Vickery place is also in section 27, and I believe that the Vickery allotment, townhouses or whatever, is Kansas City. And then there's always Meadow Lake. And that is, so that we're getting to the point that a third of it already is, and how far does it go before they say, okay, we want to square this off? And we're just going to come around, and if you don't care, we'll just say, we'll annex you and we'll give you, some little perk, and that'll be it.
I think I have to be real careful because I can't speculate about what they're thinking. I get what you're saying, and it sure looks like that on the map and all this, but I have no clue what they're hoping to accomplish over there, or what their next move is over there. I would have no way to know that.
If we wanted to find out, or if we wanted to be a part of the Canton City meeting that they have, the city council meeting, that's a free meeting that we
Sure
can
it
go
is.
to.
Oh, sure.
Do township residents have the same opportunity to speak?
You can, I think their public speaks is
think
open
their
to the
public
public,
Public.
just as ours is. You don't have
They
to
may
be a
have a little
township.
different protocol, you may have to sign in, and, they may, I don't know what their limitation is. Jessica's shaking her head back there, and so they have a process that they do.
Do you have to sign in and kind of give them an idea of what you're going to talk about? Is that what they do? Yeah, that's what I thought. In other words, you have to go in there, you would come in there and state that you want to talk about annexation. I'm sure someone there would, I've never really heard of them shutting down any of our residents. Just listen to what they're
Put your bullet riddled when you think.
Yeah.
So we're planning to go to the Stark County Commissioners Centers. We know that it probably means nothing, but it's particularly annoying that this went on and that we had no clue. We had no opportunity to talk with these people. I think the issue is water, which I think is what it usually is. But it impacts our properties, the value, plus or minus, I suppose you could say. But the fact that all this was done and nobody, I know it's their business, that homeowners, but people don't realize how easy it is to get yourself talked out of living in the township, I guess.
Swept up.
Swept up.
Yeah, swept up.
Swept up.
Anything else?
I'd like to add something that I just realized after hearing Mr. Williams speak a few minutes ago. You had mentioned Sam Slyman.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was still involved
he is.
with city government. and
He is. He's their annexation director.
I attended more than several meetings with Mr. Slyman during negotiations for annexation of the property that Central Allied now mines.
Oh, okay.
During those negotiations, the city of Canton agreed that they were going to put streetlights on 55th Street. And it's never occurred. The only streetlight on that road is the one that I pay for probably $23 a month that it cost me to have that streetlight out in front of my house. During my conversation this morning with Mr. Connor from the engineer's office, he said on 3 distinct opportunities, he said, that road is dark. There's no light. It's really dark. It's a bad corner. Nobody can see. And if we could get the city to do what they agreed upon a dozen years, 15 years ago, it's been quite a while, to go ahead and install those streetlights and pay to have them lit the way they're supposed to. I mean, they own that side of the road from everything I've been told. It might help alleviate some of the safety problem on that corner.
Okay. Anything else? Concerns of trustee or trustees? I will say, I didn't include this, but when I mentioned Jessica, it reminded me, Jessica, I just want to thank you for the article in the paper on Sunday. That was an amazing article, unbelievable. I think it put a feather in the cap of all those people that worked on that building. They spent a lot of time designing it, thinking about the scenarios they wanted to create, and I teach at the fire college, and I can tell you at least 20 people that read that article have told me how amazing that article was. So Just want to pass that along to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't really have, we look at this, and I look over at our fire chief, and I really look at the city. We all applauded it. One thing I gotta say about our fire chief, he's like you know, like you have a spigot that just doesn't turn off nonstop, just keeps dripping. And I mean that in a good way, he's nonstop. I mean, Sunday, maybe 10 o'clock at night, all of a sudden I get this text from our fire, it's like, he never, I don't know if he rests, I don't know, I hope he rests and relaxes, but he just is on the go on everything you could possibly think of. He's always so concerned about fire issues and his workers, and he's just constantly like a spigot. It's not annoying, it's not an annoying spigot. It's amazing though that that's what he does. He doesn't turn off. That means he must love what he's doing. He takes pride in what he's doing because as I said, I never know if he even really rests. When he goes home, does he rest? Because when you get a text at 10 o'clock at night, he's not resting, he's sending me something. So, and I mean that all in a good way, Chief.
And I think all the department heads are rallying to it, and we've got a good group, so trying to do good for the township.
Okay, concerns of the fiscal officer?
No concerns.
None. That takes us to the approval of minutes. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio. We will waive the reading of the minutes, but for the regular meeting held April 10, 2018 and April 24, 2018.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Castellino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. And we have no need for an executive session, so I will make a motion to adjourn at 6:51 p.m.
I will second that.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.